Hi and welcome to Simply Ballers 2024-2025 season previews. It's that time of the year where for the next 30 days I'll be releasing a season preview for each team. In each preview there will be a quick season and off-season recap. Then following that we'll be looking at what's in store for each team. We'll be looking at some of the key questions that they have, some of the positives, some of the negatives. It will be digging deeper in some of those areas. And at the end there are some final thoughts with prediction of the standings, their floor, their ceiling, some of the playoff chances, and some other fun predictions. So today we're going through the Atlanta Hawks, and they had another disappointing season, but we also reached the point where the DeJounte Murray and Trae Young experiment is over. And that's rather disappointing too, considering what they gave up for DeJounte 2 seasons ago, which was Danilo Gallinari, first round pick in 2023, 2025, and 2027, with a swap in 2025. All of those picks for 2 seasons of mediocrity and 2 playoff wins. This was anything other than a success, especially when you look at how the team was with both of them versus one of them. With both Young and Murray on, they were minus 2.6 in 2,779 minutes with a 117 offensive rating. Compare that to just Murray, where they were minus 1.1 in 2,703 minutes with a 117 offensive rating, or whether it was just Young, where they were plus 2.8 in 1,703 minutes with a 120 offense. So they were better with one of them on, but they also weren't good with Murray on. They also weren't winning his minutes, so they traded so many picks for a guy that wasn't doing much on his own and wasn't adding much when he was playing with the best player. So this whole experiment was a failure. It was bad, and it's good that they cut their losses. They weren't thinking like that we should just have another year of this. They were going to magically just change all of that, so they just decided to end it after 2 seasons. This year was also even more disappointing because Young, DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson played 54, 56 and 57 games. That's 3 of your top 5 scorers not even reaching 60 games. So that adds to the disappointment that no one could have stayed healthy, and it's tough to win without any consistency, on top of the fact that your best players don't fit. And even when they all did play, which was only 20 games, they went 9-11 and were plus 1.2 net in 917 minutes with a 122 offense. They couldn't be 500 with 4 of the top players playing. And also surprising that a trio of Young, Murray and Johnson were minus 7.9 in 693 minutes with a 116 offense. It's not a great sign either, where Jalen Johnson did take that leap and he's now seen as part of the core. So your 3 players that you think are the core, they were losing badly and they just couldn't do it offensively, and they were even worse defensively. So that's the season they had. It was just another mediocre, mid-average season, and they found themselves again in the play-in, but this time they got bounced rather quickly thanks to Coby White. So they did finally pull the plug, and they sent Murray to the Pelicans for Dyson Daniels, EJ Liddell, Larry Nance Jr., Cody Zeller, first round pick from the Lakers 2025, 2027 from the Bucks for the Pelicans, which is also protected top 4. They did manage to recoup some of the picks that they traded for DeJounte, and I think that's good enough package for him, especially considering the kind of player he is, what he has shown in these 2 seasons. They get a really good young player back. They get 2 picks and a vet. That's solid. They also did hit on the lottery in the offseason, which was a great, this was the best thing that they could have done, where they did get that first overall pick, where they only had 3% chance of getting it. They set themselves up right for it, where they traded the second best player, and they also got the first overall pick back. Not sure what the consensus or what the view is on Zakari being a number 1 overall pick, but they still set themselves up to be better this year. So what's in store for the Hawks this year? Will trading Murray be additions by subtraction? Can they just bounce back to what they were prior Murray? Because they were winning. They were also making the conference finals without Murray, with Trae Young just being the leader, being a top guy. So there could be some addition by subtraction right there. Are we going to see an All-NBA season from Trae Young? I'm a Trae Young believer. I think he's been underrated the last few seasons. Can we see bounce back from him, because he had a couple drop offs in certain areas. Can we just see him be better? Can we see him be healthy? Can we see him just add a lot more stuff to the game? Because he's still a young player. How good can Jalen Johnson be? That was one of the biggest stories for the Hawks this year, and that's going to be the story going forward. He's a wing. He's a big guy that can put the ball on the floor, can create, and can be efficient. Should Onyeka Okongwu be a starter? What's Dyson Daniels' role going to be? How much of his defense can help this team? Because he's one of the best defensive players in the league. What other moves can they make to push them forward? Because right now they pretty have the same core that went to the conference finals. They have Bogdan Bogdanovic, Clint Capella, DeAndre Hunter. All of those players have been the same guys with Trae Young for the last 3 or 4 seasons. Do you keep all of them? Do you make certain moves? Do you just want to reshuffle the roster? Because they need a change. They haven't been good with this core enough to make playoffs consistently. There is no reason they should just remain this kind of team every single year. Those players are also good enough to warrant a good package for them. They need to make moves. And finally, how does Zachary fit in all of this? He's a first overall pick. How much can he help this team already? Was this the right pick for them? Should they have traded that pick? A lot of it is going to be on how quickly he can develop as well. So the first question will be whether they made the right decision trading Murray away, because he's a All-Star level player. He is a good player in the right system. He just didn't fit this way. So will this be where the fit overweighs the talent? Because Dyson Daniels isn't the kind of player that DeJounte is, but will that fit overweigh how much better DeJounte was as a scorer, as a playmaker? Because I stated previously, the team was worse with both on than they were with one of them. They didn't fit as well as many thought they would. The addition of a bigger guard that was an all defensive guard didn't make a significant difference in their defense, and their offense just remained the same and even worse when they were together. So for the most part, I'm in a camp that the fit will overweigh the talent, especially when the talent that you're replacing with also isn't elite one. Like, DeJounte wasn't an All-NBA guy. He wasn't a clear All-Star. He was a better player than Dyson Daniels, but he's not. There isn't a gap that significant, especially alongside Trae, that can make the fit not be as important. There are ways to make 2 ball dominant players work, but that hasn't happened with the Hawks at all. He was another case of the ball dominant guard that takes a lot of mid-range shots, doesn't have an efficient profile, shot diet, isn't the best passer, and wasn't maximized properly off the ball. Here are some stats with the duos and trios that are all without Murray in the last 2 seasons. We have Young plus Capella that were plus 0.4 in 436 minutes with a 119 offense. Young plus Bogdanovic almost plus 6 in over 1,000 minutes with a 122 offense. Young plus Okongwu plus 3.4 in over 1,000 minutes with 120 offense. Young plus Johnson plus 4 in over 800 minutes with a 119 offense. Young plus Hunter, they were neutral in over 500 minutes with 122 offense. Young plus Bogdanovic plus Okongwu plus 5 with 121 offense. Young plus Okongwu, Johnson plus 5 with 119 offense. Young plus Bogdanovic plus Johnson almost plus 10 with a 121 offense. That's a lot of positive lineups that clearly worked with Young without Murray. They were elite offensively, and they didn't need Murray to raise that ceiling, because that's how good Young is as a lead guy. In the last 2 seasons, out of 28 5-man lineups with at least 50 minutes, 16 were positive. And out of those 16, 11 of them included one of Murray and Young. So this may end up them getting better while still losing one of the top players, because they were clearly better with only one of them on. A lot of that will come down with the type of season that Trae will have. He's already one of the most elite offensive players in the league, despite the narrative that he's a selfish, ball hog, inefficient shot chucker. Because it's always funny seeing people call him that, and yet he has an immense impact on the team's offense.
even going back to his rookie season, each year the offense falls off without him, and each year the offense with him on is one of the best. This year it was 119 with him on, and 115 without him. In 2023 it was 118 with him, 115 without him. 2022 119, and that dropped to 111. In 2021 it was 122, 120 I mean, and it fell off to 118 to 108. In 2020 that was even the fall off was even drastic. It was 113, and that dropped to 98. He's a clear plus on offense. He's an engine that can make it work, and there's no reason that he can't just bounce back for that, especially with the team being suited to fit his style again. But this is where he needs to have a bounce back season, because the last 2 seasons it has fell off when it comes to his impact metrics. That's where he needs to improve. He has limitations, holes in his game. He isn't the best rim finisher. He doesn't entirely get to the rim a lot either. There are some questionable shot selections. There are holes with how he's used off ball. So there are still areas that he needs to improve in. But then maybe with a different system he can work better. There are ways to make it work with him if he buys in. Because he does have a skill set to work better off ball, then the potential for this offense can be much bigger than what we've seen the last 2 seasons. And speaking of system, his D-League 4-3 with a really good breakdown on how much the offense has changed with Quinn Snyder. You can see the amount of off-ball actions, with handoffs increasing from 24th to 7th, the cuts from 19th to 13th, spot ups 25th to 19th. They were already moving in that direction. They decreased their less efficient of possessions. They were playing faster in more in transition. The isolations dropped. The jump shots off the dribble dropped. Everything was trending upwards, and a lot of that has to do with Trae Young as well. And I wonder what else that can. What other ways can this improve in? What are the other ways that they can just maximize the whole system around Trae to be more off ball, to be more efficient? Because Trae has the skill set to do whatever he needs in both ways. He can be the pick and roll guy. He can be off ball. It just depends on what the system is and the buy-in from Trae. Because one thing about Trae, he can make it work as a passer. I think that's his definite best skill in the NBA. Here are some of his stats per B-Ball index. You can just see how many stats he's in when it comes to just passing in the top 5. So many first places. His playmaking talent, second, first. Since 2020, the lowest time he ranked was second, and that's the kind of passer he is. He's probably in the top 5, top 3 passer in the league for the last 5 years, and that's what they're gonna need. And with someone that is that kind of a passer, it makes everything so much easier to build around. So it just depends on Snyder and Trae to just continue to work through things to see how him and the team can be maximized. One of those ways is embracing to be an off the catch shooter. He has been an inconsistent off the dribble, especially when it comes to his free. It's been up and down, and it's not really at the best. So this is where he should look to dive in more of the catch, because the frequency is just horrible. But that has increased this year. Since 2020, he shot 46% on catch and shoot threes, but only 8% of his shots came as catch and shoot. That dropped to 37% in 2021 with 7% frequency. In 2022 it was 48% with 5% frequency. 2022 was 37 on 6%. This year was 39 on 11. He had a career high off the catch, and he's a much more consistent and a better shooter. So can we just see more Trae off the catch? Because his rim finishing has been quite bad. He hasn't been as entirely as efficient without the free throws. He has got a good short mid-range game, but it's nothing special. What he can do is just run around, be more of a threat off ball when it comes to free. That should help his efficiency a lot more. So that's going to be the biggest question for the Hawks and for Trey. He's going to be 26 years old with already so many improvements, with so many skill sets that he's already at the top of the league. It's his 7th season. There have been so many narratives around him. There's been a whole USA basketball thing with him where he hasn't been selected. There is a lot on. There's probably a lot when it comes to just chip on the shoulder. So there are things that he needs to prove, and I don't see a reason why he can't do that. He has got the ability. He has got the skill set. So it just depends on him just turning the corner, embracing a different role, and seeing how he can have a career year. But equally as important for the Hawks, it's looking at what young players they have. It's seeing how much better can all of them be. It's seeing how much Jalen Johnson can improve after the season he had. He's already shown those flashes. He already shown how much improvements he can make. Can we expect that kind of leap again? Because just looking at Hawks Twitter, there's so much hype around him, even from Magic fans, even from some Knicks fans, Pelicans fans. There is so much love for Jalen Johnson. There's so much. There's a lot of positive potential when it comes to him that everyone talks about. Can he actually do that? Can he make that jump? Because that could make a big difference for the Hawks. Then there's also Onyeka Okongwu. He's been one of the better young players for them. Can he make that jump as well? He's been a backup big for his career so far. His impact metrics has been kind of up and down. He started off as a clear negative player. Then he had 2 of his best seasons. And then he dropped off this year. Over the last 2 seasons, the Hawks have been better with him and Young versus Capella. So there is some conflicting evidence that point to one direction and the other. What's the case here? Is he that kind of player that he does make the team better, or is he one of those players that just is there but not quite there yet? So not sure where he's going to fit in. Should he will he get a bigger role? Should he start more? Has he shown that he should? So there's still a lot of questions with Okongwu, and I just wonder what happens with him. Because when it comes to Capella, that should probably move on from him. I don't see much use for him. Like, that's been a tried thing so far, and that's been one of the reasons why they've been so bad, especially on the defensive end. They just need a change, and one of those changes could be Dyson Daniels. He's already been one of the best young players, especially on the defensive end. I've enjoyed him play in this rookie season. He's already been quite an impactful defender. His defensive EPM was plus 1.9 in his rookie season and plus 1.5 now. So he's already, at his age, a really good defensive wing. And you can see here from DD43, he's a whole Dyson Daniels film thread. He goes through how he's been a disruptive defender through various ways in deflections. He's a good point of attack defender. Again, that will make the fit work with Trae Young. They need someone that can just be that kind of defender. That was meant to be DeJounte. That hasn't been the case to that extent. They're gonna get someone better in Dyson Daniels in that department. He's going through with his rim finishing and his downhill ability. Again, that's looking solid. The float game, his passing and secondary ball handling upside. There are some shooting questions, but again, he's a young player that's still looking to develop. But there are so many ways that he could look to improve the team even as he is, and there's still potential with him just developing and working on those weaknesses. And right now, there is nothing that shows that he won't develop into a solid role player. But then what about the rest of the team? There's still Bogdanovic, there is Capella obviously, there is Hunter. There are solid players, but this collection of players is a big reason why they've been this bad. I do like Bogdanovic a lot. The Hawks have been +3 in 7,000 minutes with him on since coming to Atlanta with over 190 with an 100 offensive rating, and that drops to -2 in over 8,000 minutes without him with a 115 offensive rating. So there is clear impact that he has on the offensive end, whether it's with Trae or on his own. Because with and without Young, in his four seasons, he averaged 21 points per 75 possessions on 55% effective field goal and 57% true shooting with 23% usage. Their team is also plus with 3 without Trey. So there is clear impact that he has on his team as a lead guy or when it comes to just playing with better stats. I wouldn't trade him. If he can get an upgrade, I would. But right now, he's a lock that should stay on his team because of what he's shown alongside Trey and as a guy. But then there's Hunter as well. I'm not sure how to feel about him. He's one of the biggest questions for him is always been health. His stats across the board has been around the same in its season. His impact metrics don't like him at all. He had a really good season in 2021 where he was a clear positive at plus 2.2, but then that dropped to -2, -0.6, and -0.9. Was that season just an outlier? Was that season just a flash? But then he's more of a average, neutral kind of player instead of a clear positive player on both ends. Not sure what there is with him. He's already going into his 6th season in the league. Is he what he is? Should they just consider moving on from him for whatever they can get? And this applies to Clint Capella. Don't know what this trio really gives the Hawks anymore. It's the same trio that got them those same results. They need an upgrade. They need to just reshuffle something. They need some new players that could give them something different. It's pointless just relying on the same players, hoping that they can give you something different when you can look to get players that will definitely give you something different. So I wonder how many changes they will make throughout the year, whether they do just completely overhaul the entire roster. Finally, there is Zachary, and it's looking at how will a first round pick look in this context, because this isn't a bad team. This is not a team that just has nothing, no good players on this team. This is a solid team. This is a team led by one of the top offensive talents. That alone makes a big difference for a rookie coming in. So this is a first overall pick. So how much help can he give them right now? What are the ways he can be impactful on this team? Or will they prioritize his development, where they will go through rough stretches with him, or will they prioritize winning? But I also just wonder how much of his life will be made easier because of Trey. He will have that kind of impact on him. So that could help his development come quicker, as opposed if he was drafted to the Wizards. So some predictions. I'm seeing around a 40 to 46 win team. Their floor is a playing team. The ceiling, I can see them being the 6th seed, with Trae Young just being in his usual role, with better fit, with players that make the system better, especially with the addition by subtraction from DeJounte. I can see the team be better. They have more length this year as well. They should be better. I don't think that will be a big difference when it comes to the playoff chances. But when it comes to regular season, we know Trae Young is already good enough to carry the offense, raise the floor of the ceiling. Then there's the potential improvements from Johnson that can be the difference maker. There's Dyson Daniels, 2 players that can swing things for a lot of them. But even with all of that considered, this is a team that still has a lot to improve on. This team still has a lot of questions, has a lot of players that could go your way. It's still a lot to bank on. And there are still a lot of questions when it comes to just the roster as a whole with Hunter, Capella, Bogdanovic. Will they look to trade them? Because if they trade them for good pieces, that can flip the season. If they make significant moves, that can make a big difference for them. It can push them towards that 6th seed, and it can make life easier for everyone. But overall, I think they did a good job that pushed them upwards. But it still feels like they're in the same spot, especially if they keep all their vets. If they keep all of these players, even with improvements around them, even with Johnson stepping up, even with Daniels being better, and Trae Young having an All-NBA season, they go back to what they were around 2021, which is a solid playoff team that can win a trade, that can win a series. And we haven't even considered the potential trades for Young, because that's been a loud conversation throughout the off season. Though I don't think that's going to be likely. I do think they need to just see what they have with him in a different setting, in a different context, in a different environment with different players. This is not a guy that you just trade for because reasons. He is the player that you should look to develop and build around with. So right now I have them around 41 wins with Trae Young bouncing back to all NBA seasons, and they're going to be the hunt for the play-in.